All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Adventurous CMO, the show that explores the world of marketing leadership with a focus on brave conversations, real stories, and behind the scenes insights from top marketing leaders and creative leaders. And today it is Greg and I, and super excited to have one of our exploring sessions that we're calling these, where it's Greg and I talking about the things that are on our mind, as well as happening in the industry, and really exploring how we navigate each of these different topics. And this will be the first of many. But beyond that, also just thinking of talking about what's out there and what people are saying, and really reflecting it back to who we are and how we think about it. So excited for today, Greg.
Yeah, for sure. What's going on in your world?
Well, I'm wearing a Braves hat in honor of your son, and their big win yesterday. So just rocking it. Braves, the actual Braves team isn't that great right now. So I wish they were, but your son's team's much better. So there we go.
Oh, that's awesome. And happy birthday to Christine, your wife. I hope you all have a great time celebrating. It's been, yeah, for sure, a momentous week in my world as a dad, but also a momentous week in the world of our business and in creative leadership, brand leadership. Tons of updates this last week at Google I/O and all of the things happening with Flow. I feel like my feed is 90% AI video now, and I don't know about you, but it's crazy. And then just like literally within the last hour, Perplexity launched Labs, which is their kind of multimodal tool for creating. And I thought this week we could talk about authenticity, which is a subject that's come up a ton in the last several conversations we've had with guests. And authentically, how do we remain ourselves as these things happen with AI entering our work? And just maybe pose the first question to you. What do you think is our role in the work that we do, given that so much of it is being augmented by AI?
Big question out the gate, and excited to take a stab at an answer to that. I mean, look, it is a really interesting time to be in the business of helping solve problems via creativity, and I think it's really fascinating because the speed at which we're able to learn and get information and have that information actually inform strategic decision making, not even just be data, but truly actually be like concise strategic recommendations, et cetera, in an actual creative output. Like, I mean, it's kind of crazy how much everything is changing. But it's interesting because we talked about it a little bit on, I think, when we did our AI conversation a few episodes ago. But I always come back to kind of the theory of like, what's the simplest answer to how I look at our business and how I look at the value we create for the brands that we work with. And I think if I was to take the simplest approach to answering that question, I would say that agencies are responsible for solving problems, but I would say beyond the solving of problems, what we are is a champion for bravery and a champion for transformation to exist within an organization, because we are being like our role in it is providing a service. And so to me, the thing that is the most interesting about all the transformation taking place is the human element of being in someone's corner and helping them solve a problem and enabling confidence and doing a lot of soft skill related things that are all absolutely predicated on domain expertise and like creative expertise, et cetera. But the like value add of being someone's confidant and someone that is championing a vision, I think is actually the value exchange that happens when you're in a great agency partnership. When you're in a great partnership with client and agency, it kind of transcends the work to a point where your value is beyond the execution to really being a partner that is championing and bolstering the effort of a great visionary leader. And so to me, the interesting thing that trickles out of that is the reality is the tactics and what we implement, how we implement it, the tools that we use, the like speed at which we do it, the vehicle in which we do it, all of those things are changing. Like those are all things that will change. However, if I bring it to its most simplest form, I think that human beings are inherently want to be connected to other human beings. And like we've talked about this in our business, like we as an agency have been at our best when we relationally are at our best with each other and with the team. Like when we're driven with camaraderie and driven by shared vision, like great things happen. And I think it's no different in the agency space and in our work specifically, where I think that's where the flywheel of momentum and effectiveness really starts to generate speed. And to me, again, I know that's a super esoteric answer, but like that's how I'm looking at it right now. And it doesn't mean all that stuff, like all the specifics of the nuance of how how the sausage is made is not super important, but at like a high level, that's how I'm looking at it. What about you?
Yeah, really interesting. And I know we touched on that a little bit with, I can't remember which guest recently, but I definitely agree. I think there is something that I'm seeing, like a lot of the creative directors, creative leaders that I am connected to, a lot of people are talking about the feeling of making. And I think that there's something really interesting happening right now. Whether you work in our business or, I even hear my neighbor talking about like their first experiences with ChatGPT, or people who are super passionate about the possibilities of AI video. And they're like, I spent the whole weekend and I made 120 pieces of content, and it's crazy. And then, it's mostly unwatchable. I think the various sides of that coin, all these people are talking about the experience of making and what it means to them. And I think people who previously couldn't make, or they didn't have the skills or tools to make, are talking about the idea of getting the experience of getting their ideas out of their head and somewhere that they can share, and what that makes them feel. And people who has spent years, decades making, and are now seeing the experience of that change, are talking about, a lot of people are talking about the loss of joy, and how if we remove the experience of making, the craft of it, the part where we turn our ideas into output, what does that do to the experience of making ideas in the first place? Like, if we have a great idea and part of the joy is in the bringing that idea to life, what is our role in it? Like, are we just are we prompters? Are we directors? Are we overseers of something else making? And I think most people that I'm seeing talk about this on our side of the business are saying that inherently there is something unique to the doing, to the making, that
Totally.
can only be made by us. So I don't know. I don't know if you're seeing these conversations.
Yeah, I think that if I could respond to that, the interesting thing about like doing it in a marketing organization or in a creative organization or the combination of both is speed to getting it done. It does not inherently equate to joy in the process and or the best possible outcome, because like the constraint of making in the way that we've made it in the past has been a continued refinement, right? Like think about you could have a CNC machine build a marble sculpture, but to an artisan that is a marble sculpture crafter, they like that is a totally different experience. And it is both making, they both make something. But to one, that every chip and every piece of sandpaper and everything that you've done has built something that has been totally human made and like with pure intention, and the other is made and probably better if you like without human error, but lacks the like depth of like what did it take to actually make it. So I hear what you're saying. I mean, I think that that's the tension that exists. It doesn't have there. I wish there's like a pinpoint like here's the answer to it, but it is very much using that analogy. I mean, that's happening all the time now. And what I find in our work is the reward of great creative work is being able to go on the journey of start to finish and being able to experience the highs and the lows. And man, we have our own experiences of, midstream creative moments. So you're like, wow, that was nuts with a client, with clients and internally and all that. But I just think that the reward is so, people always talk about you got to love the journey. I think that's the interesting side of all this is like, how do we not make creative work and frankly any work just become transaction? Because one, the enablement of more people making, I'm actually all for it. I think that's fantastic. More ideas are getting out there, and more people are trying to explore ways to tell stories and build products and like do all these things. That's a good thing. But the tension will remain in how do we know if we've gotten far enough? How do we know if, like the tension of like, how do you know if it's truly getting to its potential if there isn't also just like the camaraderie of other humans? So yeah, definitely something that I think is being explored and will continue to be explored constantly as we keep moving forward.
For sure. I think I saw someone a comment recently about there will always be people and there will always be a resistance to the hard stuff. And I think the ability to create with AI amplifies both sides of that, right?
Yeah.
Like there are going to be people who dive in and either leverage AI or don't leverage AI to do the hard things, which are usually the human things. And there are going to be people who say, you know what, I want this to be as easy as possible. And the first idea that I think of is going to get made by AI, and it's going to go out there. I'm going to blast it out there as much as I possibly can. And I think that, going back to your first comment or your first answer, it's interesting the dichotomy between like transaction and transactional content that's filling, everyone's feed, and like real storytelling and real meaning. I have a feeling that these tools that we're talking about are like weeks old. So, months away from now, we're going to find people using them to do like real meaningful work. But right now it's like, it's, the rattlesnake shedding its skin. And like every single person getting every idea that they've had pent up in their brain, and like the just doing for doing's sake. I wonder, when you're talking to either our clients or other leaders, like how would you guide people to navigate the journey? Like where should people start in terms of finding their authentic path in this like crazy time?
I think it's I think that there's there's the old, adage of, and I talk about how there's no safety in standing still. And I think that for everybody in whatever environment they're in, whether it's marketing, creative, or literally any other aspect of both vocation and just independent life, like should put on an explorer's cap and go out and start to understand how AI is transforming their life and how it will continue to transform not only the workplace, but just the world around us and how we interact with it. But that doesn't mean that you have to surrender I think this is where it's really interesting, because when technology changes, and we've never really seen it in our lifetime at this clip, but it's really easy to feel like it's an A or a B type situation, right? It becomes this thing where it's like, Dan and Chip Heath wrote a book about decision making years and years ago, and it was all about how like most people, when left to the like moment of decision making, make every decision as if it's an A or a B decision, when in reality you've got 1,000 options. And I think that that's how we have to look at how we have to look at it, and how I encourage everybody to look at it is look at your life, look at your work streams, look at how you get your work done, and find ways, which is what we're doing as an agency, find ways to leverage tools and technology to be an enabler of your ability to prioritize the things you're the best at, and to help make more of that. And start there. Like, don't try to like usurp yourself from the equation and go, no one can do what I do. Like, I think that obviously computers are smarter than me. So like, I'm no longer a storyteller. I'll let that, I'll give that away to somebody else. I would rather say like, hey, what is it that you love doing, and how can these tools help you do that? I think is how I look at that. And I think that is coupled with something that I saw our friend Paul Drohan post on social, I think this week, about the whole AI killing AI taking your job things. And I'm gonna read it because I was like, this is profound. He was like, we often talk about technology and AI taking our jobs, but the real risk is that we lose what makes us human. It's not just automation that threatens careers. It's the decline. And this is the part where I was getting to. I love what Paul said here. It's the decline of genuine human connection, meaningful engagement, and undervaluing of soft skills like empathy, communication, and appreciation. Because when workplaces lack trust and collaboration and recognition, people disengage and leave, not because of AI, but because they don't feel seen or valued. And the future work belongs to those who invest in relationship and foster real engagement, show appreciation for others. Like I thought that was so profoundly well said, because I think that's where we live. Like that's where we're at. It's like the moment of going, put effort into learning and in exploring and doing all that, while simultaneously recognizing that if you throw out all the human side of this in the process, you're going to be screwed. Like on the back end of all this,
for sure.
You'll be in a tough spot.
Yeah. I mean, you have to learn. I think the other thing about like the starting point is you have to learn to do it bad in order to do it well. And like it's these tools are no different than we've all spent years honing our craft, whatever that is, honing our skills, and these are new skills, and you have to learn to do it poorly before you learn to do it at a high level and get to unearthing the good stuff. I loved Greg Hahn had a note around this recently, and he called it Darwinism, but with an A and an I capitalized. This idea that like AI videos featuring characters talking about AI characters being AI characters is like this like new inception that we've seen across every place that content lives. But we're like he calls it the era of the survival of the freshest, which would be a badass poster. We'll have to design that. But like this idea that the ones who have something interesting, useful, and truly thought-provoking to say in a way they only can say it will be the ones who rise above the noise and really connect. And it'll push us to be more relevant, more insightful, more interesting. And the fact that like our survival as creators depends on it. And I go back to what we chatted about with Casey, which is like, I think he was like, I just effing love big ideas. And like, that's how our brand stays like relevant and authentic. Like there is this translation from like at our individual level to brands, like this idea that like the world is getting inundated with things that are absolutely not authentic. Like, have you seen brands surviving or like kind of navigating this tide well in a way that they're kind of owning their authenticity as a way to stand out from an even busier and noisier space?
I was going to flip that question back on you because I've answered a lot of questions, and so I was gonna reverse it because I feel like I've answered a bunch. But No, you share some of the ones that are kind of top of mind for you. Obviously,
Yeah.
we get to talk about this often, and I'd love to hear from you on some of the ones you think are doing a good job at that, and I'd love to parlay that into a question after that around why creativity is a critical leadership function in authenticity, because I do think that that's something that we're wrestling through now as we
For sure.
explore this topic.
Yeah. I mean, the Aura Ring work that came out this week is fantastic. Give us the finger, I think is the line. Just brilliant work from Nice and Frank. I think, very rooted in a human point of view, a human insight, which is like getting old is badass. And how do you leverage data
Right.
in order to like grow old with grace uh, and I think like kudos to a brand for having a great brief, and um, as well as like the confidence and courage to stand behind an idea like that. So simple. I think maybe flipping it to like a more meta side of it, like I do think that Google has done a great job managing the both sides of being able to give people tools that like honestly are just filling the world with slop, but also their own way that they're navigating the AI tools that they're putting into the world is very human. Like
Yeah.
partnering with real filmmakers to make to make art, to explore the tools, to show what's possible. Partnering with musicians to, I think at IO they had Toro y Moi, which was a little like kind of uh, we might have jumped the shark, but also kind of amazing that he's up there like live, mixing stuff on stage with an AI like creating alongside of him. I think that Google's really trying to like maintain the humanity as they release these tools. I think to your second point is like, man, like at the same week we're getting all of this stuff, we're seeing, a legend like David Droga saying that he's going to retire and basically proving the value of the creative person and the like creative originalist in this whole continuum. Like he grew song from 12 billion to 19 billion over a very short period of time when everyone said, what is a creative doing in a CEO role? And at the same time, OpenAI is basically spending $6.5 billion on Johnny Ive in his brain and saying that like that viewpoint matters. Like the experiences that we all are going to inhabit for the next many years should be shaped by someone with a really sharp point of view. So I think to your point, like the people behind the work matter and people with a point of view matter, probably more than ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that that's the interesting piece of all this is um, it often resistance to change causes people to do one of you've got a few options. One is you put your head in the sand and you pretend like change isn't happening. Looking at you, Kodak, or like there's plenty of examples of folks that have tried that play. It doesn't work. The second is to say I'm intrigued, but kind of stand on the sidelines, still critical of all the people that are putting the effort in. And then you got the early adopters that are like, I'm all in on this. I'm going to figure out every like nuance of how to make it work. But I actually think a lot of people could find a fourth area, it's kind of in between that, where like I think you can hold the tension of like, look, it's emotional for massive change to happen in any industry, let alone all industries at the same time. And of course, every industry is it's gonna happen at a different pace and a different rate. And we talked on our AI episode about how if all ads start looking the same, like what is brand differentiation at that point, right? Like how do you actually like brand differentiation and actually standing for something and have a point of view becomes like ridiculously important, like more important than ever, because all of a sudden everything's going to feel and look and act and be the same. And I saw something interesting because we have a subset of business in the hospitality space. I was looking at something that said, and I haven't fact checked it, so I could be wrong, but that Proper Hotels was like pulling. This is very brand and very like human centric. They realized that their core audience is very health conscious and very like wellness driven. So they're pulling all seed oils out of their entire, like all their hotels would be seed oil free. Now that's a super bold move, but it's also really interesting because it's a very human move, because it's like, we know our audience, we know who we're for, we know what we're about. So we're going to serve them well at the level that we believe is necessary to be authentic. And I think those are those moments where it's like that insight could have been driven by a collection of material and data via AI or whatever. It's like both can exist at the same time. Like you can do both without necessarily having to sacrifice one or the other.
Yeah, I think you hit on something that we've talked to the team about recently, which is, if you look at creating or the continuum of putting things into the world as an hourglass, you have the top of the hourglass is inputs, and those inputs are increasingly going to be AI generated or compiled or analyzed, and we're going to be able to get through that funnel faster to the human part, which is that bottleneck in the middle. But it's really not a bottleneck. It's like the great simplifier, the great authenticity machine that enables us to make what goes in more human when it comes out. Because the reality is, on the other side of the hourglass, when it comes out, it's probably going to be more AI generated as well. And I think those outputs are helping us get somewhere faster, but they need that human input in order to stay authentic. And I think I saw someone talking about the rise of kind of remix culture, where great ideas, once were re-engineered by creators, and we're now having the rise of AI video can make those ideas the next remix of themselves, like where you can see a fake AI creator basically like repurposing a Virgil Abloh quote, and you can if you didn't know better, you would think that this is someone's original idea. And I think we're in an age where AI will be so good at producing the expected that it's accidentally creating a market for the genuinely unexpected. Yep. And that is all of our great opportunity, is we can be authentic and unexpected and uniquely human and show up in the world in wonderful ways. And it's a crazy time, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of change, and something I feel like that is a great example of why we have this show.
Absolutely. I was going to try to mic drop your last comment, but then I realized if I dropped my podcast mic, how would I respond? So I didn't do it. But I think you're totally right. I mean, these are the questions and things that I think all marketers and here's the tension, right? Here's the greatest tension of all this for marketers. You're having to navigate all of this while simultaneously hitting your goals, running campaigns, doing all the other activities and tactics that you're responsible for in your marketing playbook at the same time. And regardless of if you have 500 people in your organization or you have 5, it doesn't matter. The same level of tension will exist across the spectrum of size, because none of these have simple answers. And I think that's the reason why I think being adventurous and has been so tied to our DNA as an agency is because it's all about risk and daring exploration. Well, there's this reality that we have no clue what's around the curvature of the earth. We don't know where we're going to end up, but you still have to be willing and comfortable enough to lean in and keep going, and willing to recognize that, like, you're gonna have to be decisive and deliberate regardless of if you can. I think I love what Kevin said about, like, make as many asynchronous bets as you can. I think that's absolutely true, while simultaneously there's gonna be plenty of bets that you may not know what's going to happen on the other side of it, and that's okay too. Like, you have to be able to hold that, and again, not lose your courage in the process, because your courage to just keep going, while not sexy and not a silver bullet for success, I believe will have a lot of will be a number one predictor of whether or not you get to another point where you go, hey, I actually got further than I thought. Let's keep doing this. Let's keep put one foot in front of the other.
For sure. Love it. Well, really appreciate everyone. See the comments coming in. Really appreciate everyone being part of the conversation. Love the comments coming in. And there's a comment from Jason about this idea that, AI can't create the illogical or unexpected. I think totally agree. AI is compiling. I do think that we will see a world where AI will create things that we can't create. I think the beauty is in people are on the other end of what we create, and they will always want the human. I think there is a way to get to unexpected with AI. I think maybe just wrapping up our conversation, I feel like to add on to what you said about putting one foot in front of the other, I'm hearing this recently, often, which is this caveat every time someone brings up any kind of connection to AI in the creative process, which is like, this is what I got from ChatGPT, like, take it with a grain of salt. And I think everyone's having that feeling right now, which is like, I know I'm supposed to be faster. I know I'm supposed to use these tools in my workflow and be better, or like have more inputs. Let's not forget to, like, give people the permission to, like, not feel bad for it. We're in this in-between time, and just because it came from somewhere else, like, it doesn't mean it's wrong. And just make sure to make time for your own thinking.
Totally. I think it's I would add to that I think being able to do it faster, or being able to use tools to do it, isn't we shouldn't frown upon the ability to do that. But I do think we have to ask ourselves a really important question, which is it actually answering is it answering the actual need and challenge that I'm trying to solve for? And being able to really hold ourselves as creative leaders, as marketing leaders, accountable to whether or not it's truly gotten there. Because I think this is that tension of speed is intoxicating. It enables us to feel like we can be superhuman, but I also think the trap is to think we don't have to think anymore. Like, there's this interesting duality and kind of tension there, where we're like, you got to be able to be willing to take a beat and go, am I actually, does this answer the need? And again, not all content, not all creative, not all work is created equal. Like, there is work where that you might have to hold yourself to a higher standard, and it takes twice as long as other work. And that's the reality of solving problems. Some come faster, some don't. But, like, I think if we continue to hold ourselves as individuals to a level of responsibility in our ability to leverage these tools to get to great outputs, it elevates all of our output beyond a transaction or a deliverable, to truly, like, are we actually doing what we set out to do in the first place? Is the intent actually being met? So I don't know if that's helpful, but something that I'm thinking a lot about, right? Like, you can get lots of different type of copy out of these tools and things like that, but you have to hold yourself to a level of, like, excellence when it comes to what you truly deliver. So I think that's where, I've been reading like I've been reading this fiction series, and I was thinking about it the other day, which is like, I am appreciative of the author and the effort and painstakingly specific effort of some of the scenarios and just different sequences that happen in these books, that they put into it. Cause it's like, you can just find yourself in your imagination in these moments. But I also know it's like the day will come where you're like, hey, I really like this author and this author and this author. Can you just, write me a series? No, it is, but for real, like write me a
For
series of
sure.
books around how this works. Now, the interesting thing about that is I actually right now, sitting where I'm sitting, wouldn't feel the same connection to knowing that someone's brainchild created this entire world, and it's something that I can join them in, because you're actually joining someone in their creation when you do that, versus going, this was pre-made for me based off of prompt. And I'm not saying one's bad or the other. Like, those are those real tensions that you're like, man, I don't
For
know.
sure.
I don't know what that's going to look like.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing between like there's good art and there's great art.
Right.
And then there's just art, and you know, Below Deck can exist in the same universe that Breaking Bad can exist in,
Totally.
and we can appreciate them for different reasons.
We may all want more Below Deck after,
the escape is real.
Yeah,
Awesome.
exactly.
Well, really appreciate everyone tuning in for this episode. We'll definitely be doing these Explore episodes, every 5 or 6 guests, and look out for next week's episode, and definitely follow and subscribe if you haven't already, and see you on the other side.
Bye, everybody.